I don't know. I'm afraid to say anything about it. So even the fact that I know what the consequences are of me doing this podcast, this episode on my podcast with this psychologist is a little bit scary, because I'm thinking, what if people are going to look at me differently because I chose to do the episode on this, in my mind, brilliant psychologist? I'm not going into the politics of what he did. I don't even know what he did. I don't even know what he believes. This is just my understanding of how much his input into how to navigate life better has to do with tools that acting already provides for actors. So he's just transferring those tools, doesn't name them acting tools, and names them life tools. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Hi, everyone. This is Mihaela with Hey Stella Podcast. As I find all these articles without even trying to, I realized that the method, technique of acting uses the same tools that now professionals, such as psychologists, suggest and introduce to people all over the world to better equip them with living everyday life. I came across this interview that was done with this very known doctor. I believe he's a psychologist. And as I was listening to his interview, in the way that he described what was happening in the world, what can we do to be better equipped with all the mayhem that's happening, he was describing, without actually naming what he was describing to be acting technique or acting tools, exactly that. I am not surprised, as I've been confirmed over and over again and trying to tell people that the tools of acting are the same tools for everyday life. Already, how many different tools did he mention that have to do with acting? I'll go back trying to remember what he said. But he said, as a human being, we are at play with an aim in mind. We are at play. He even used the word play. So he's using terms that are being used in acting to describe the way that he works and the way that he prepares when he does all these video interviews online and globally, because he's very known. He's got millions of views online on his videos. He doesn't prepare. Well, he does prepare. He does prepare, but then he doesn't want to know the questions in advance, because he wants the questions to come to him in the moment to try to then enter them and give himself that space of the unknown territory to come up with the answer in the present moment. As an actor, you're being taught to do the same thing. You learn the lines, you learn the monologues, you learn the scene, you learn the script analysis, you know what the whole thing is all about in a script or in a play. But then you're being told that you have to forget it and you have to allow the lines to come at you in the moment of when you are playing with the other partner on stage or by yourself in a monologue. He's describing the same tools that great acting requires. You have an aim. As a human being, you have an aim, you have a goal, you want something. What do you want? What do you want? If you don't want something as an actor on stage, you have nowhere to go. That doesn't mean that your want does not change depending on the obstacles that come your way and challenges. But leaving yourself open to discover yourself, what's going to come next and how you have to go about it, in answering the questions, in overcoming what the other person is saying, in dealing with the situation in the present moment. It's about moment to moment being. That's being told to actors, and that's what great acting does. It puts you in a state of in the present now, even though I know what I'm going to say, but how can I make the words that I'm saying, that I've prepared in advance and I've memorized, sound as if I am saying them for the first time? That's the challenge as an actor, as a great actor. Therefore, that's the challenge as a human being in everyday life, but it can be done. So he's putting into play, which he even uses the term, those tools of actors that are being used by great actors. Unknown territory, be in the unknown. Do not be afraid of self-discovery in the moment of explaining or trying to answer a question. Don't come with something that you already know for sure, because that's not going to allow for you to grow as an individual. Another thing that he said, do you know what your aim is? You do know, but you have a clear understanding that you are going to attain that aim or that goal? No, you don't. Because if you leave yourself open, who knows what's going to happen in the moment of you being? It might take you in a direction that you haven't even anticipated, which is what keeps you alive. And then he brings in the word adventure. You want to be in an adventure of your life rather than just hope, oh, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be happy. Adjectives are not what you want to play as actors. If you are saying to yourself as an actor that I'm going to play wanting to be happy, that doesn't make any sense, because it's not an active verb. To be happy is not an active, specific goal, objective. You have to give yourself something. Do I want to come into this room, into this situation that's fictional? Do I want to get my point across to the other person, but at the same time, I'm staying open to what the other person is saying? So the listening has to be turned up. The present moment of listening has to be turned up, because maybe what the other person is saying might make sense more than you had predicted in your preparation of what the person was going to say. Maybe because of the way that the person is saying it, they're going to convince you of something that maybe in your preparation of that, you are not convinced of. So the preparation happens, but then you have to forget all of that you prepared and be open to how in the moment the person is going to convince you of something else. Acting tools, acting tools, acting tools. Unbelievable. So another thing that he was talking about right now, when he said about the truth and my truth and what does that have to do with anything, there can be subjective truth that someone is experiencing, and I have to believe that the other person, the other character, as an actor, as a human being, is feeling. If somebody says to me, I'm in pain, I don't necessarily see the pain, but I'm listening and I'm watching, I'm observing, I become an observer to see what that pain is. So he is valid, or she is valid, in having a subjective truth that I can respond to, but that doesn't mean that that truth is going to become the ultimate universal truth, and everything that's being done ongoingly with that other character is going to change my behavior so I can take on that feeling of pain, and my behavior is going to change. My ultimate goal that I had to go after is going to change due to their subjective truth, which is valid. That makes so much sense. So you cannot change your behavior. You cannot be expected to lose the truth in order to take on someone else's truth and change everything about what you are and who you are to adapt to their truth. That's what he's saying. You can still go on going after what you want, taking into consideration what the other person said about their truth. Another thing that was like really, really, really amazing is that it's so fascinating to hear him say that the one thing that we should welcome, which society nowadays does not welcome, is having people telling us, you are going a little bit overboard with what you're doing. You're going a little bit overboard with the way that you're playing with the other person. And he uses all these terms, the way you're dancing around it, the way you're playing with the other person. The listening to other people's opinion is what keeps you a human being that's rational, because you do not want to be like the dictators who surround themselves by yes people, yes people, yes people, yes people, and then they have no concept of how far they're going. It just makes so much sense that all of these rules and all of these suggestions that he has, and people are paying attention to them in such a high number, is because they are so well described by him And they are so well at play for so many years as actors. That's what I talk about with actors. That's what we do. We are going and using these tools that the method acting provides in order to be able to create a character that's going to be a complex human being, the way that he said. It's not just about you saying there's her truth and there's the truth. It's more complex. And do not make that description in what that is to be so simple, because it's not. The complexity in the characters and the findings that we not always reach a conclusion with, but we're in the question area, is what make characters be so identifiable to audiences who watch and love them, because we don't have answers for everything the characters are doing. We are in the complex territory of I don't know. It's brilliant. And he says that the fascist regime is much better than the compassionate narcissist. I understand what he says, because again, coming from a communist ex-Romania, who was a dictatorship for so many years, we were already aware that that's what we were living under. You knew what that was about. You knew that if you were to speak against the government, you would be punished. You knew that you had to make choices and you had to speak against your loved ones sometimes in order to be able to survive or to have a better life. And people were snitching on their loved ones in order to get more food to be able to live. So when he says that he considers compassionate narcissism, which some of the people pretend that they're just compassionate, but they're narcissists, pretending to be there for the truth and they want to do what's right, and they raise up to such a hypocrisy, as I've experienced in so many different places in my life, that is worse than a direct understanding of this is a communist regime, because at least you know what you have to deal with when something is directly coming at you that's negative and that's horrible, than with somebody who pretends to be compassionate but is a narcissist and a hypocrite. That makes so much sense. It makes so much sense what he's saying. Okay, well, he's talking about playing with him and at the same time wanting something from this conversation, and about politeness and being kind and bowing. That's something that we tell our students. Actors have to learn not to bow, because by bowing, even to the other partner on stage as an actor, you are doing the other person disservice. You're not helping the other person if you're being polite all the time, and if you're pretending to be kind all the time, or even if you get to kindness inside yourself and that's all you bring out on stage, at play, or in a script, you're not helping the other person. What I tell my students and what we talk about all the time, and I try to apply to myself for as much as I can in my life, because we have to ongoingly train ourselves and work on ourselves to be able to be better, is to leave politeness outside the door. Leave politeness to the side. That doesn't mean that you go and you hurt somebody else directly or indirectly, but you leave the politeness, because if you don't bring the politeness and the victimhood or the bowing to show how kind you are, you will have been better as a person for yourself, and you will have helped the person that you're playing with or against, because you will challenge yourself to see what else is there. You will challenge your partner. You will challenge the other partner to be in the moment, himself or herself, rather than just play to, oh yes, I'm here, the partner, the actor across the stage from me, I'm here, I'm bowing to you. Then the other person has nothing to work for. They have nothing to overcome. And that also happens in life. As he said, if you're bowing all the time, then after a lifetime of bowing, the resentment that comes out of you doing that will be so toxic to you and to the rest of the people in your life, that if you would have chosen the way of leaving politeness to the side and being a little bit selfish in the way that you approach your life, that will have helped the people in your life as much as you will have helped yourself. That's an acting direction. That's an acting suggestion, which he now reminds us that it is the same for everyday life to be taken on. The fact that somebody like this doctor can help somebody who's already famous and competent and mentally and physically strong as Cristiano Ronaldo is the same fascination and the same surprise that people have when I travel and I tell them that famous actors and great actors, even though they're at the type of their game in their career as actors, they're still working with an acting coach. And they're all shocked and surprised by it. Majority of the people, majority of the actors believe that acting is a few-year program that you go to and then you stop and then you are a great actor. It is not being made clear that famous actors all their lives are working with their acting coaches. Some of them have worked with their acting coaches that they had as acting teachers since they were young, and they continue to keep those acting coaches. Others are employing acting coaches for the first time when they're in their middle of the career, because now it's becoming more known that that is the thing. This actor is the same. He is working with Cristiano Ronaldo. He's working with people who on the surface look like they would not need anybody to guide their lives because they have the money, they've had a career, they're famous, and life is just perfect. And there's no such thing as that. So he's a reminder to all of us that working on yourself with the coach, with an acting coach, with a life coach, with a psychologist is a necessity for the entire lives that we are lucky to have on this planet Earth. No matter the money success, no matter the career success, no matter the friendship success, it is the same for acting. Great actors are working with their acting coaches because they are wise enough to know that the training of knowing how to be better equipped as a human being in life never ends. And what better way to do it than with somebody who can help you navigate that just a little bit better? It makes so much sense that he is helping so many people, because people are starting to realize that the process of becoming better as a person is an ongoing gift that we all have. Because as long as we live, we can improve ourselves and navigate the different strategies of how we want to achieve that which sometimes we are afraid to think that we want to achieve, or we believe that we're not good enough to achieve. Only the fact that I'm watching this interview and he spoke about his going over to visit this very famous football player is making me put my goal back to the front of my brain, and is making me think about it in a more practical way. And that's exactly what he says. If you're asking the question in your life, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you know you're capable of doing? But ask the question in a way that is practical, in a way that's not just a question that's being left midway in the air, but it's put in a way that's active, practical, and you actually give yourself the answer or write down the answer to what the goal is, to then how many ways of you are going for it, how many ways of trying to attain that are there in a practical way. Put them down, write them down. Are the same tools. Again, it's the same thing that you have to do when you do script analysis for a character in a play. What is it that my character wants? What is it that my character's ultimate goal, overall objective is? And how many ways are there to try to go about it? Because if you go one way about it and you cannot succeed, then there are other ways. There's a second one, there's a third, there's a fourth, there's a fifth. Write them all down. Try all of them before you give up. Because as a character, you cannot give up. Because if you give up as a character in a play or in a movie, the movie stops, the play stops, and you cannot do that. So that kind of understanding from a character's script, from a character's analysis or script analysis will help you in everyday life to say, I'm not going to give up. Because if I don't succeed in this way of going about to achieve my goal, there's got to be another way. The second way doesn't work, there's a third way, there's a fourth way, but you gotta do it in practice. You have to go for it in a way that is practical. The same way that I tell my actors, acting is not theoretical. Acting is getting up on your feet and doing it. Well, if acting requires that of the actors, why wouldn't life require that of the people living it? Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me. I don't know much about the last segment, which was about his visit to a school. The methods of the way that the school is being teaching the kids is against the norm, because kids are having to pay attention to rules. The one thing that came to mind, because I don't know much about this specific detail of what the school is about, when he was talking about the description of observing those children with commitment to what they were listening to, with focus. That commitment and that focus is required of actors when they're actually in their work. The concentration and the commitment and the willingness to commit is at the top of every great actor. That's one of their achievements. Do you want to commit to that which is what you want in the scene? Do you want to commit to creating the space around you to become personal to you, which means your use of the senses has to become so elevated and it has to be so heightened in order for you to make yourself believe in the moment that the particular fictional place is actually a personal place to you, and you will provoke the human inner life that's needed for the character. So to me, commitment and attention and focus are very positive, in the sense of that is what the actors have to work with, and that is what the actors have to train themselves to be able to accomplish with every single day of their life, as they are continuing to be actors and take on roles, to make those roles be specific enough that they become universally understood. Focus, attention, commitment, full commitment to the exercise, full commitment to your life. If you commit to your life, if you commit to what you want to do in everyday life, and you commit to the different strategies that we talked about before in how to attain that goal, how much more advanced do you think you will be able to be than if you just think about it, and if you pull back and you only commit 25%? I think there would be a huge improvement in all of our lives if we committed, if we have the willingness to commit fully to that, what we are doing. Another thing that came to mind when I was listening to this conversation was the series Squid Game, which took the entire world by surprise. And I did an episode on it. And I remember when I first saw it, I couldn't stop watching it. And one of the reasons why I couldn't stop watching it, and I remember turning to Jeremy and I was saying to him all the time, they are using the same rules in Squid Game for the characters to be the same exercises that we use with actors in their development, in their training, physical, mental, emotional, in acting classes. What do I mean by that? There are the same exercises that those characters in Squid Game had to go through, with the goals that were life or death, which is the only difference between what the actors have to go through, because they only imagine. The actors only imagine that those rules of the game are life or death. You have to imagine that the consequences of your game is that big. So in a world of real life, if I were to imagine that my goal would be to do something that I have been working on for the last 25 years of my life, and now it's coming to an understanding of what it is. And if I go about the different strategies of how to get there, and none of those strategies and none of those tactics that I have tried work, if I allow myself to imagine what the consequence of not attaining that would be, and if I just say, oh, it doesn't really change anything, the consequence of me not attaining my goal is just going to be that I'm not doing it. So it's only in response to how I'm going to feel, what my truth is, subjective. It doesn't really affect anyone. But if I decide that I'm going to change that decision in my mind, it is going to be of such loss to so many people. By putting that higher consequence to be there, my commitment to wanting to make that work will be so much stronger. It will be so much more full on. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you can trick yourself in everyday life to say, I'm not just doing something, I'm not just working on something that I want to attain for myself. How is it going to help other people? How can I be of service to other people with what I'm trying to do? If you put that into the equation, you will fight harder when it comes to the understanding that you're going to do good for others. So you trick your mind in everyday life the same way that actors have to trick their mind and use their imagination in the given circumstances. Squid Game became so worldly recognized and watched by the most people of any series, from what I understand. And the main actor received for the first time the Best Actor award of a foreign actor in a series ever, because those games had those high consequences. Those games that were written in the script, a script that took the writer director 10 years to be able to put on its feet, because nobody understood it and nobody believed in it, because he was so advanced and so ahead of his time. And he never gave up. And he never gave up because I'm sure he knew that it was going to change the world. Those games that he put down in his script are the same games that are being used to train actors in classes of acting, to make them more focused, to make them more attentive, to make them more of an understanding of the consequences of what it would be like if you don't implicate your entire self into those games. You have to put your full commitment, your full willingness to try to win, because if you don't win, the consequences are that you die as the character. But then in life, imagine if you just put that on top of what you want individually and expand it to how it is going to help other people, and giving up on your goal will have mattered more, since it has to do with a higher consequence imagined, of course. Squid Game. Why does everybody understand and love that series? They love it because it has rules, and people have to abide by those rules to earn, to stay alive. I mean, how gruesome is that to understand, and how terrifying it is, but how watched is it at the same time? So what does that tell me? That tells me that people want rules. No matter how much we say we don't want rules, we want to do whatever we want to do. But chaos within chaos doesn't elevate us as human beings. Chaos within structure is what makes us grow as individuals, as people, and continue on the process of trying to become better as humans. Sometimes becoming better as a human being, you have to try out what it's like to not be good, to leave kindness outside, as we talked in the previous minutes. Sometimes you have to give up on kindness to give yourself the opportunity to discover what the flaws are, so you can work with them. But if you don't find the flaws of who you are as a human being, then how can you work with them if you don't acknowledge them? Or you won't leave yourself alone to be a full human being, but you will portray only the kind part of yourself. That's only being 25% of who you are, actually. Rules, Squid Game, regulations. People may think that we don't want them. People may think that they're not. To be part of our society, we have to be free to do whatever we want. But at the same time, everybody was watching Squid Game because of the rules and because of the consequences of life or death. Because that's within our humanity. We all know that we're going to come to an end. We're talking about the children, the young people of today's being anxious and afraid of life. And one of the things that the doctor said, that first of all, you have to acknowledge that which you are and what you feel. You have to acknowledge it. You have to give it voice. You have to speak it. He didn't say it in my words, but I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, which is another one of the things that actors have to do. They have to acknowledge that which is what they feel in the moment before they even begin the so-called scene. So if you get up in front of the camera and if you're having anxiety about how bad or how you are going to do as an actor, you have to speak it out, even if you don't say it too loud because you don't want the rest of the cast to hear you. Give it voice, mouth it. Because once you accept that which the inner critic is already telling you, the inner voice is telling you that you are and you're feeling, you will have the power over it to go on and to actually be truthful in the moment that comes next. It will lead you on the path of truth. So as actors, you are being asked, you are being guided to not be afraid of feeling the negative feelings that we all have as human beings and accept them. So then by accepting them, you will know how to work through them. You will know how to work to overcome them, accept them. Again, he's talking about life. He's not talking about acting, but it has so much to do with what actors are already doing. When they work with their acting coaches, they work through those anxious moments that they feel. It's really powerful. When it comes to what they were talking about, the women who are afraid to say who they are or what defines a woman, I'm not going to go into it because I don't know too much about it. I just know that both sides of the aisle, this was made so much into politics nowadays. And all of them who are saying one side and the other ones who are on the other side, who are doing it for personal benefits, then they are both hypocrites. There's so much hypocrisy because it has to do with personal gain. It doesn't have to do with the betterment of other people. It doesn't even have to do with those people that they're referring that they want to help. It has to do with their personal gain and power. So I'm not even going to go into that. But he's talking about now the preconceived idea of someone. Another thing that we tell actors, another thing that we're being told as actors is not to have a preconceived idea of what the scene is going to be. For these interviewers to have an understanding of this guy to be a certain way because of their information on him, their preconceived idea of who the guy is will not allow them to be moment to moment discovering who he is because they already have an idea, which might be wrong, but they will stick to their guns and go after him without allowing themselves to be in the moment of listening, which is the hardest thing that anybody can do on stage, off stage, on screen, off screen in life. If you watch anybody on television, journalists, interviewers, very few know what to do when they don't have something to say. It's much easier when you have something to say because you're using all the facial muscles and especially the ones around the mouth. But when you don't, when you have to listen, you don't know what to do with yourself. You don't know what to do with your mouth. So a lot of the journalists go, start to observe people who have nothing to say on television when they're listening to others. The listening is one of the most difficult things to do. So you're focusing on listening and knowing that you have to improve at doing that as a human being is, again, actors' work. They have to improve at being better listeners and being in the moment, leaving the preconceived notion what you think the scene is going to be or what the person across the stage from you is going to behave like, and allow yourself to be open to the unknown, even though you've done the preparation, like we said, is what makes great acting great. And it's what makes great living great. What else did he talk about? What are you improving at? Oh, the fact that he's improving in the way that he is still able to maintain what he believes in, but the way that he is emotionally containing himself, or the way that he's emotionally being able to explicitly find the right words rather than push people away because he's emotionally too aggravated in the way that he explains himself. The fact that as an actor, you're being asked never to think of the emotion that you're going to portray. Leave that emotion to the side because that's not going to be of help to you in the way that you give your message across. Think about what your objective is. Think of how important getting that objective is for you, and then going about it in a way that it's not going to make you further away from the objective. Because if you're going to start being aggressive in your message towards someone, no matter how important the message would be, your objective would be, if you're being aggressively towards that person, you're not going to get your objective across because the person is going to stop listening. They're going to turn away and run, screaming at somebody because the person can turn away and leave. At the same time, you cannot give up on your objective. You can't just say, I don't like the way you're behaving to me in the scene, therefore I'm going to turn around and I'm going to walk off stage. You don't have that opportunity. You don't have that option. You have to continue. You have to continue, and you have to find the ways of how you are communicating and be able to deliver your message so that the other person doesn't leave or you don't turn around and leave. So we have so many things that we can learn from actors in everyday life that is just absolutely beautiful and marvelous to see how now, more than ever, psychologists, other professionals are using those tools. It's so amazing. My God, what an interview. This was quite something, wasn't it? Whoa. What I have to say, the last segment where he's talking about him wanting to teach people how to write and edit and doing all these things, trying to allow people to think differently, was so what we're trying to do as actors. Don't just stay within a box of your beliefs. Be stimulated, ask questions, even if you don't trust or don't believe somebody else, or you disagree with the things that he says or she says. Keep your mind open and evolve. Involvement of our humanity doesn't stop because you stop your curiosity. Be curious about everything. Ask the questions. The fact that he talked about these brilliant thoughts and ideas that he did not come up with, but they're ancient, but he's able to put them into a perspective, and he's able to communicate them where they influence so many people and are helping so many people. It's just so mind-blowing. I think that no matter what you believe, do you believe to be the same or in agreement with what he has to say or not, it is a stimulating interview that needs to be paid attention to. I was made to be questioning what and how I'm going to make my life more concrete and go after what I want in a more specific, in practice way. So it's the fact that I'm asking questions about myself and what I want to do and how much do I want to do what I want to do makes so much more sense. I don't agree with everything that they were talking about, but I do recognize that there's so much similarity in what he teaches to be so much the same as acting tools are. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.